Good morning to all the students of class 11th political science. And students, in this particular video we will be taking up the topic that is philosophy of the constitution and constitutional amendments. Two topics I will cover, and these topics have been added to your first chapter. Previously this used to be chapter number 10 of your book, complete chapter philosophy of constitution, but a small topic of that chapter has been added to chapter number 1. It means we just have to know the meaning of philosophy of the constitution, or what do we understand by the philosophy of the constitution. Okay, so briefly we will be discussing the meaning and purpose of philosophy of constitution. Otherwise it is complete chapter number 10 of your book, which has been deleted from your syllabus, but we will be reading the introduction part briefly. Okay, and also we will be taking one more topic here, constitutional amendments. Now let's understand the meaning of philosophy. So always keep in your mind, whenever a term philosophy comes, although you know this is a independent subject in the higher studies, higher education, you'll find a subject philosophy, but here for your understanding, philosophy of constitution, philosophy here means guiding principle. Whenever we have a guiding principle, or we have some moral values which guide our particular behavior, that is called our philosophy. For example, we'll take this here, a theory or attitude that acts as a guiding principle for behavior. Any theory which you follow in your life, or whatever attitude you have which you follow in your life, which is like a guiding principle for you, and that's your behavior. So whatever behavior you have, and behind that behavior whatever is the guiding principle or attitude of yours, that is your philosophy in your life. For example, I say my philosophy in life is to work hard, and if we have to be successful we need to work hard. Whatever project assignments I get, I work hard sincerely over them in a way to be successful. In short, I can say my philosophy in life is to do hard work if I want to be successful. My other person can be said that his philosophy or her philosophy in life is to respect the elders, like parents, teachers, elder brother and sisters. So his or her philosophy is to respect the elders. In the same way, there can be many examples which are the guiding forces or the guiding principles in a life of an individual, that is called philosophy. So in the same case, we are talking about the philosophy of constitution. What are the guiding principles of the constitution? Because most of us think that constitution is just a written set of rules, and there are laws written down according to which a society is governed. But we need to have a clear understanding of the constitution, that what type of laws are incorporated in the constitution, and why they are incorporated in the constitution, and what were the purpose or the guiding force behind those laws. कोई भी लॉ बनता है तो उसका कोई पर्पस होता है. ओके, सो वी नीड टू नो द फिलॉसफी, एंड दैट इज ओनली कॉल्ड द फिलॉसफी ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, वेयर वी विल अंडरस्टैंड व्हाई वेरियस आइडियाज, वेरियस प्रोविजंस, वेरियस आर्टिकल्स हैव बीन included, have been merged with our constitution, and those must be having some philosophy behind it. So when we talk about a legal document, that is constitution, so it must have some philosophy. So we'll understand philosophy, like in, as a example I have given here, as a person we have a philosophy in our life. In the same way, constitution also has a philosophy, some guiding force, some guiding principles. One more example is here: don't accept anything and you won't be disappointed. That's my philosophy in life. Okay, so some person is saying, suppose that I do not expect anything from anyone, and that is the reason I am never disappointed. So this is the philosophy of a person in his life, where he is never expecting anything from anyone, and that is the reason he is never disappointed by anyone. So this is the philosophy in life. In the same way, we will find the philosophy of the constitution or a law book. What was the philosophy behind adding laws into our constitution? Because each and every law is very important. We need to understand the roots of those laws properly. So moving forward with that, now you will be able to relate that it's written, all laws do not have moral content. So they are saying, what there are so many provisions and laws in the constitution, in terms of there are various schedules, there are various provisions, articles for the functioning of our country. So it means here they have told that all laws do not have moral content, but most of laws have moral values embedded in them. So here we are comparing the laws with the moral values. For example, if we talk about right to opportunity to work or right against discrimination, I say that according to the constitution, everyone no one should be discriminated on the basis of caste, color, language, or religion. It means we are focusing on the morality of equality. It means we believe on the moral of equality, because in our past, in our history as a colony of British, we realized the value of few of the important values or the moral, that is equality, freedom, justice, democracy, citizenship. These are the important concepts and phenomena whose meaning is very deep for the Indians, because we have realized when we were a colony where we were not given any opportunity, any representation, any freedom. So these are the values, and through these values of equality, we have framed various laws for our citizens where they are not being discriminated on the basis of their caste, color, language, or they are given equal opportunities. They are given the right to work, right to education. There is no discrimination between male and female. So if you look around for so many laws, all the laws have some guiding forces behind them: equality, freedom, justice. These are the broader concepts according to which many laws have been framed in the constitution. So equality, justice, freedom, these are some of the guiding forces or the guiding principles of the constitution. So that is why we are studying the topic philosophy of the constitution. So by understanding the deep meaning and concepts and the roots of equality, freedom, justice, citizenship, democracy, and many more such phenomena, we will try to understand the deep philosophy of the constitution, because each and every law has been there for a purpose. It's not just a set of rules written down one by one. There must be some relevance, deep study, deep analysis has been done behind every law. Although every law cannot have the moral content, but most of the laws have the moral content. Suppose I say appointment of judge of Supreme Court, or appointment of Parliament, okay, appointment of Chief Justice of India or Chief Minister. These are the political systems to appoint the administration for the smooth functioning. Okay, so these cannot have the moral content behind them. But when we talk about the broader terms, justice, freedom, equality, so these concepts are inbuilt in many laws. So before I move forward, one more thing we have to understand: does there exist connection between? So we have to understand by this example that all the laws do not have the moral content, but few have. The laws have moral values embedded in them. This means that there is a connection between laws and moral values. So whatever laws we are studying in the constitution, whatever laws provisions are noted down in the constitution, have some moral values, or not all laws. So there is a connection between laws and moral values. So we cannot say that laws are different and moral values are different, because many of the laws are incorporated in the constitution because of the guiding principles of the moral values, like equality, freedom, justice, the examples I have given you. Thus we need to adopt a political philosophical approach to constitution. So if we have to study the philosophy of the constitution, if we have to get the proper deep knowledge of the constitution, if we have to interpret the concepts of constitution, we need to have a political philosophy approach to the constitution. So our next point would be, what do we understand by political philosophy approach to the constitution? But before that, let's take some part of the chapter, the philosophy of the constitution, from your NCERT book also. To understand the philosophy of the Constitution of India, it is important to ask what kind of a constitution we have given ourselves. What kind of constitution we have given ourselves. Next, what objectives did we hope to achieve by it? What objectives we had hoped to achieve by adopting our constitution? Do these objectives has a moral content? Whatever objectives we are expecting from the constitution, what are the laws have been incorporated in the constitution, what are the moral contents included with them? If so, why, what precisely it is? If there are some moral contents, what precisely it is? What are the strength and limitations? What are the strength of our constitution? What are the limitations of the visions? And by implication, the achievements. What are the achievements and weakness of the constitution? in these are the questions which every citizens have in their mind if we are talking about the philosophy of the constitution. Okay, and in doing so, when we have so many questions in our mind, in doing so we try to understand what can be called as the philosophy of the constitution. If you have so many questions in your mind, if you are interpreting and trying to understand the deep concept of the constitution, and you have these questions in your mind, it means you are trying to understand and the various concepts of the constitution, and that understanding and trying to know the guiding principles of the constitution, that is only called the philosophy of the constitution. So simply you have to keep in mind guiding principles, okay, are called the philosophy. So we are talking about the what were the guiding principles of the constitution, which through which there are so many laws have been incorporated, and many of these laws have the moral values, along with there are so many other laws which do not have moral values. So but there is a connection between laws and moral values. So for the proper understanding of the philosophy of the constitution, the approach which we should choose is a political approach of philosophy. So now we'll try to understand what do we understand by political philosophy, or the political approach of philosophy. That means political philosophy approach, it means understand conceptual structure of constitution, that is understand meaning of terms used in the constitution. There are so many provisions and concepts in the constitution, like the rights. In detail we have studied the rights in the Indian constitution. What do we understand by secular, democratic, citizenship, democracy, republic, etc. There are so many broader concepts in the constitution. So we need to, first of all, if we have to understand political philosophy approach, we need to have a understanding of these concepts of the constitution. Whatever concepts have been incorporated in the constitution, we need to have the clear understanding of those concepts. And here political philosophy means where we are talking about the laws, where some laws have moral values also. So the second is better grasp of set of ideas mentioned in the constitution to understand the key concepts of constitution. As I said, there are many concepts in the constitution: rights, citizens, secularism, democracy, all that. If you have to understand those concepts, we must have a better understanding of the various ideas which are mentioned in the constitution already. Okay, so moving to the third one, a philosophical treatment of value is incomplete. If you are talking about studying constitution philosophically using the political approach, if you have to study the constitution in this way, it would be incomplete if detailed justification of it is not provided. So when we have to study the constitution philosophically or political approach, we need to have a detailed justification, and this detailed justification is going to be incomplete till we do not include the reference or the debates which were there in the Constituent Assembly. It means we have to understand what was there in the minds of the framers or the forefathers of the constitution while they were making various laws for the constitution, framing our constitution, drafting the constitution, adding various provisions, articles into the constitution. So there must have been very in detailed study they must have done, and we seeing the various circumstances of the society. So for proper philosophical understanding of the constitution, we must also include, or we must also refer to the Constituent Assembly debates. Okay, so these three things were under if we what do we understand by the political approach, okay, of philosophy. So in short, philosophy of our constitution is committed to, mainly our philosophy of constitution is committed to freedom, equality, social justice, and some form of national unity. So our major philosophy of the constitution focuses on these phenomena. But apart than this, all this, there is a clear emphasis on peaceful. So but the important thing is we should have more importance and emphasis on peaceful and democratic measures for putting the philosophy into practice. Okay, so with this we come to the end of the topic philosophy of the constitution, and I have just taken the introduction part because this entire chapter is chapter number 10, but this has been deleted. Only a single topic has been added with chapter 1, that is philosophy of constitution, where we had to discuss the meaning of philosophy, which I have discussed. Now further I will be discussing what is the meaning of constitutional amendments. Although this is also a complete topic in the ninth chapter, but we will not be taking the whole chapter. Again, I will be taking the important meaning and concept of what do we understand by constitutional amendment. This is chapter number 9 of your NCERT book, Constitution as a Living Document. Although this chapter has been removed, but one topic from this chapter has been added to chapter 1, that is constitutional amendment, which we have to study. And if we have to study constitutional amendment, we need to also know the meaning of constitution as a living document. So let's take a brief introduction of this chapter also, so that we can have the understanding of constitutional amendments also. So, and for your information, I would like to tell you that by 2019 there were around 103 amendments made to the Indian Constitution, and last year in 2020 one more amendment was done and the number went to 104. So you have to remember, till date, that is till 2021, we have 104 amendments already done to the Constitution. Okay. The first topic of this chapter is, our constitution static? The meaning of static is here anything where we cannot make changes or modifications. So they are asking, are the constitution of India static where we cannot make any modification changes, or we cannot upgrade it according to the new situations and circumstances? Okay, so this is a question, but we know our constitution is not static. Our constitution is dynamic in nature, which keeps changing with the change in situation and circumstances with the passage of time. Okay, but this change is not easy. There is a proper procedure in the constitution mentioned, that how we can amend, and changing and making modification in the constitution, it is called amendments. Okay, and these amendments are of three types, which we will discuss here in this topic. Okay, in detail, although we will not take each amendment, but I will tell you what are the three type of amendments. And these changes are not easy. There is a proper procedure which is to be followed. Okay, so answering this question, our constitution is static, I have given you the answer. But look at India. The Constitution of India was adopted, and you know this date, 26 November 1949, our Constitution was completely drafted and adopted. It is implementation. It was finally implemented after the signature on 1950, 26th January. More than 55 years after. This is an old book, so here it's written 55. Now it's more than 70 years. We have been having the same constitution, continues to function as a framework within the government of our country operates. So we are having the same constitution from more than 70 years, and which is functional, and our government is operating according to that old constitution already. So is it that if we are following the same constitution, so now the question arises, is this mean that our constitution is too good, that is does not need any changes? This is a question for you. Was it that our constitution makers were so far sighted? Or the other question is, our constitution framers or the forefathers were so far sighted that they could see all the modifications which were required in the future, and they had already incorporated all the provisions in the constitution, that so that no changes were required till date? Is that the case? Or in some sense, so if we answer these two questions, in some sense we would say these answers are correct. To some sense, it is true that we have inherited a robust constitution where we had taken various articles, various provisions from the various constitutions around the world. Whatever provisions and articles suited to the society, Indian society, and to our culture, we have opted those particular concepts from various constitution, and that is why we have a mixed constitution from the different countries, and it is a very good constitution. The basic framework of the constitution is very much suited to our country. So we talk about the basic structure of the constitution. It is very much suited to the society of our country. It is also true that our constitution makers were very far sighted. It is also true that our constitution framers had thought of the future government, of the future society, and accordingly they have incorporated various provisions in the constitution. And one of them is there where they had made provisions and articles through which we can make the modifications, changes, or amendments in the constitution if required in the society. Although that was not an easy task, there is a proper procedure which is to be followed. But no constitution can be, but we know there is no constitution in the world which can provide for all eventualities. No document can be such that has needs not to change. So changes are universal law, and but we have to see that what are the rules and provisions which are being incorporated in the constitution through which we can make amendments. So when we are understanding these topics, you are getting the answers of both the questions that document this constitution as a living document. Living document means anything which is living. It means according to the change in situation and time, our document is making modifications. It is reflecting and showing its action through various amendments. So it is a living document which changes with change in time. Okay, and also we are trying to change understand the amendments here. So then how does the same constitution continues to serve the country? So how is it possible that the same constitution of India more than 70 years have been passed and we continue to be following the same constitution? One of the answer to such a question is that constitution. So the answer of this, our constitution accepts the necessity of modifications, because our constitution has a provision where their modifications can be made according to the changing needs in the society or change in demand, time and situation. Second is, in the actual working of the constitution there has been many flexibility. So when we work our constitution, we have a flexible constitution of interpretation, but political practices and judicial rulings have shown maturity and flexibility in implementing the constitution. These factors made our constitution a living document. That is why we call our constitution as a living document rather than a closed and static. So our constitution is not a closed and static rule book. It is a rule book which is called a living documents, where which is flexible also and rigid also at the same time. It is not so flexible that easily any rule can be changed, easily its basic structure can be changed, but with the change and requirement of the society, some changes can be made, and those changes are called amendments. So simultaneously we are covering both the topics, living document also and constitutional amendments also. In any society, those responsible for drafting the constitution at a particular time would face one common challenge. Okay, any institution which is responsible for drafting the constitution faces many challenges. The provision of the constitution would naturally reflect efforts to tackle with the problem that society is facing at the time of making the constitution. At the same time, constitution must be a document that provides framework for the government for the future as well. So while there was drafting of the constitution going on, so our forefathers or the constitution makers had also knew and realized that what will be the problems which will be faced by the government in future. So they have already made provisions where government can make various changes in the constitution when required. Therefore the constitution has to be able to respond to challenges. So whatever the challenges will be faced by the society, those challenges will be solved by making certain changes in the constitution that may arise in future. In this sense, constitution will always have something that is contemporary. It means our constitution will always be updated up to the time, modernized, and something that has more durable importance. The makers of Indian constitution were aware of this problem. So they were aware of the problem that there will be many changing and challenges in future. So they were aware of the problems which is going to be faced by the people and the government in future, and to sort to strike a balance, and to make a balance, they place a constitution above ordinary law and expected that. So they had put our constitution above any ordinary. Future generations will respect the document. At the same time, they recognize that in the future this document may require modifications. Okay, even at the time of writing the constitution, they were aware that no many matters there were differences of opinion. Whenever society would veer towards your particular opinion, a change in the constitutional provisions would be required. So here we are only talking about the changes which were required with the change in time, the modifications which we had to do. Thus Indian constitution is a, so we can say Indian constitution is a combination of both approaches mentioned above, that it is flexible also and rigid also in some sense. The constitution is sacred document, we call it as sacred, and we have to respect it as our duties also. that is an instrument that may require changes, and it may require changes from time to time. In other words, constitution is not static, which I have told you. It is not a final word about everything. It is not unalterable. It can be altered, it can be changed, modifications can be made into it, but it is a sacred document which our forefathers have framed for our country. But everything needs change, and there is nothing in the world which does not require any changes. So within the require, we will be able to make changes, and those changes are called amendments. So this article has been incorporated already in the constitution by the framers. This is article 368. So you have to remember article 368, it means it is regarding the amendment of the constitution. So parliament may in exercise, so it's written in short, they have given the exact words of the constitution. Parliament will be able to exercise the amendments of its constituent power amended by way of addition, variation, or repeal any provision. If they have to make any changes to the provisions or make a new provision of this constitution is accordance with, so they will be allowed to do this by following a procedure laid down in the article. So there is a procedure written down in this article 368 that how we are allowed to amend the constitution. We have already seen that the makers of our constitution wanted to strike a balance. The constitution may be amended if so required, but it must be protected. Although we were allowed that we should amend the constitution when required, but changes and modification does not mean that we change the complete structure of the constitution. It should be protected from those unnecessary changes or the frequent changes. The changes should be there when it is very much important and significant for the society. In other words, they wanted the constitution to be flexible and at the same time rigid. So the framers of the constitution wanted that our constitution should be flexible to the modifications with the change in time and circumstances. Along with it, it should be rigid, that is those changes and modifications should not be so easily done. Flexible means open to changes, and rigid means resistance to changes. A constitution that can be very easily changed or modified is often called flexible. So any constitution which is very easy to change or make modification, that is called flexible. In the case of constitutions where they are very difficult to amend, they are described as rigid. But the Indian constitution is a combination of both these characteristics. But there are few constitutions around the world which are very flexible, and there are few constitutions around the world which are very rigid. But India had seen the balance between these two approaches, and India has followed the combination of both flexible and rigid. So it would depend upon the type and nature of the modifications which is required in the society. The makers of the constitution were aware of the fact that there may be some faults or mistakes. So framers knew that of course there must be many faults and mistakes left out by them while framing, and many times some rules or law were applicable at that moment, but in future with the change in situation, those laws may not be applicable. So they said that no constitution can be totally free of errors. Whenever such mistakes would come to light, whenever people will find out the government will face some mistakes in the constitution, they wanted the constitution to be easily amended and be able to get rid of the mistake. So the framers of the constitution wanted that easily the future governments can get rid of those mistakes and laws, and they can change them. Then there were some provisions in the constitution that were of temporary nature, and it would decide. So basically it's the same thing which I have been explaining you. So when we talk about how to amend the constitution, when it comes to the amendment of the constitution, so in the article it has been given, it can be amended in three ways. There are three approaches, or the three nature of approaches amendments similar to ordinary. The first change is same like we have ordinary laws, simple majority. Through simple majority in the parliament we can make amendment in the constitution. But these laws are not laws which are specific laws, these are ordinary laws. But when there are other type of amendments where we require special majority in the parliament in both the houses separately, as per the article of 368. Everything has been mentioned in the article 368 regarding the amendment, these three approaches also. And the third is where will be some amendments where we will require a special majority plus legislatures of half the states. Half of the states legislatures support also will be required, along with the special majority in the parliament. This is also incorporated in the article 368. So these are the three type of amendments in the constitution. So if we had to study this complete chapter, we would have taken them separately, but here just we had to understand the meaning and introduction part of the amendments of the constitution. Okay, so this we end this topic also, and from the next lecture we'll start the chapter number 2. Thank you.